So I'm recording, but I don't know what the topic is, because I know what I prepared, but given a certain class size, it changes what the lecture is. You weren't here last week. You weren't here last week.
There was something else I had to do.
No, you're forgiven. You were here for the first time last week, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And Kurt, I love you, is here every week. I assume you do it just because I don't know why you do it every week, but thank you.
Live very close.
Live very close. There we go. Okay. And as well, Howard and Marcia. I was going to say Maria, but I didn't.
It's close.
Yeah, I know. I see it. I know your name every week. I just can't remember it from week to week.
All right.
Yeah.
Marsha, that's it.
It doesn't work.
John.
Actually, I say Howard's name more often. Are here every week. So forever, since forever. So the problem is that, as I said all along, with a quorum, meaning 10 people, say 8 of which were here last week, that makes sense to repeat to follow on in some sort of sequential way. But what I'm hoping is that because of the snowstorm, people will come next week, and then they wouldn't want to miss the lecture that I prepared for this week. So then the question is, to my mind, what extemporaneous thing can I use right now to fill the gap between this week, last week, and next week? Okay, so I have so extemporaneously, we were talking about, before I turn on the video, what is going to wipe out the human race, and weather, okay, and weather. So just think about it. We are a planet in the universe. There are an infinite number of planets like our own, because the universe could be infinite. So then there's an infinite number of planets like our own, and the only question is, how far away is the nearest planet like our own that has human beings talking about the rest of the universe? And in all likelihood, it's probably pretty far away, and beyond the distance that we could possibly detect it. But if civilization is doing what our civilization seems to be doing, then after a period of time, if we continue to do what we do in the exponential way that we tend to do things, then we should make our presence known in the universe. And so there was this guy years ago, Enrico Fermi, better known for his being the first person to split the atom. He actually had a nuclear reactor that he built in the University of Chicago, and he split the atom. And this was years before the atom bomb was being built. But it was years after they knew that the atom was splittable and that the mass can be converted into energy. Anyway, a digression on a digression. His question that he posed to the people who had in fact invented the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb, his question when he had lunch with them was, where is everybody? Where is everybody? And everybody understood that meant, without further explanation, where are all those aliens? Why don't we know them? Why aren't they here? And I've delivered lectures on where are they and alien life forms and all that other stuff, but there's a likely explanation that I buy more than likely than any other. Those civilizations should have been able to get here, send their spaceships here, knock on our door and say, okay, I'm a robot, but I was sent by other civilizations to check you out. Hi, I'm here. Let's make friends. That has never happened. It's possible you can populate the entire galaxy in less than, I'm going to say 100,000 years, let's say 1,000,000 years, which is a short period of time compared to the age of the galaxy, which is, 11, 10 billion years old. If in the last 1,000,000 years there was a civilization out there that said, we're good, we're kind, we're not going to destroy ourselves, and we're going to send out probes to the rest of the universe, and we're going to send out people to the nearest star. And those people will go to the nearest star and they'll spend 5,000 years reinventing civilization, because remember, they're kind. They don't make war. They're the bonobos, okay? They're not us, okay? They're the bonobo monkeys. And so they grow exponentially, near a star, build a civilization, build spaceships, and go visit the next nearest star, because 5,000 years isn't very much time. So 5,000 years, you have 5,000, then 5,000 squared, and then 5,000 cubed, then 5,000 to the fourth power, and very soon 5,000, you get civilizations everywhere in the Milky Way. They're all, every 100th habitable planet is occupied, and they're all everywhere, and they come, and then they certainly have come here. And the question is, why haven't they come here?
Maybe they have. Maybe they're just in a form that we can't recognize. Maybe they're microscopic.
I love that, but there's some really good reasons why that's not true. Although this is, I'm really winging this one. Okay, if you take us and you shrink us down like in those movies in which Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Okay, there's a lot of things you can't do when you're smaller. And if you take all that mass and you put it into a much smaller thing, it wouldn't operate at all, because the laws of physics and chemistry and everything make the object, the small little being, could not continue to operate as a being. So he'd have to be thinner, or he'd have to be lighter, and he wouldn't be able to manipulate things. And it's not that small animals don't exist. It's not that they don't exist. It's just that they can't do as much with what they've got. For example, have you ever noticed that when you build a fire, here's a good example. Have you ever noticed that when you build a fire, it's controllable in this size space? But do you think you could build a fire that's controllable in this size space? The fuel would burn out very quickly. It's hard to do the same thing in this size space with just fire than it would be in this size space, I think. You can't smelt iron in this size space, right? If you're building a civilization. So that's where I'm saying on the fly.
So your assumption is that if there is life, they would colonize different planets or worlds or whatever.
Yes.
And then move on.
Move on.
Because the assumption seems to be that we're looking for intelligent life and that they would contact us, and if we didn't answer or they don't answer us, we don't go there. You're
Right.
saying they would just go to bodies whether or not there was life on those.
They would go to these planets. They would terraform them. They would make them their own. And they would go on from planet to planet.
So they would even have come to Earth
They-
even if we weren't here yet.
Right. And they would have left the monolith.
So you think that there's nothing, or there's nothing? You're just talking about the Milky Way galaxy.
No. Milky Way galaxy is plenty big for at the speed of light. 100,000 years to cross it. So literally, and then 1,000,000 years to get to the next big galaxy. 2,000,000 years to get to the
You
new.
think there's no one anywhere, or you think there's no one in the Milky Way?
No, I'm saying is,
besides us?
if there was a civilization here, in 100,000 years, or maybe 1,000,000 years, they would have populated the entire galaxy if they were good at going from planet to planet every 5,000 years. And so, if space travel is at all possible, and there's a group of people who don't kill each other but are really well nice people, and they work well with each other, and they do not create horrible what do you call it, fake news, and they're logical people who understand that there's some things that are true and some things that are not true, and let's work with the things that are true. So we build a civilization based upon best principles, and then we get to the nearest star very easily because we're good at that. I don't know. So there's a possibility that the entire galaxy would be filled if there were good people out there, and it doesn't seem to be true. And so that's what I'm saying. Given that it's not true that there aren't any civilizations out there, and I haven't finished arguing that, and of course you can't really fully finish arguing that because we don't know. They could be talking in a different bandwidth to each other. The universe could be filled with chatter that we are too primitive to understand. And once we get 50 years older, or 50,000 years older, we'll be able to read the message. So I could be totally wrong. Yes. Yes.
So now I think that you just have a parable or a metaphor or something for Noah's Ark.
No. No. Yeah.
Because there were two of each.
They're going.
Then they
Well,
probably-
Noah's Ark filled the Ark with one of each.
Right.
Okay.
Well, two.
Two. Well,
Yeah.
No.
Well,
yeah,
no.
two of each. That's true. But
We need-
well, I was trying to save space because there would
All right.
there would have been not enough room on the Ark for one of each,
They're on
two of
each
each.
other.
Yeah.
Pile up.
Pile them
Yeah,
up.
let's
Vertically.
take a few sperm.
Right.
That's all you need.
And
I mean, but that's amazing because that is such a basic story for why we're here. Well, you're just giving
The
another
flood.
one.
The
Yeah.
flood.
A different
we have
version of
every
it.
year.
A different version of Noah's Ark.
Well, but in this case, they're going to these various planets, but they're doing it because, like we have, they have a need to explore. And in fact, Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise visited each one of these places previously and gave them the need to explore new worlds, go where no man or now woman has gone before, or they say now no one has gone before. And so we have a need to go. I think we have a need to go because we need to know the answer to a question, are we alone? Because somehow or other I think the human race feels alone. And I think we want to know if there's others.
There's other alternative called a dark forest from Chinese science fiction, that they don't have to be nice, so civilization. So in this fiction, a civilization that's developed enough knows that nothing can come good being discovered or discovering another one. So what happens in this scenario, as soon as a civilization finds another one, they destroy it.
Of course. Yeah.
Then that would explain.
Okay, so then there's another likely
We are
explanation.
just not good enough yet to find anything.
Uh,
And nobody
civiliz-
found us, obviously.
Civilizations that find other civilizations
It's a bit
destroy it.
Actually, that's 3 books.
Yes, yes. What is the name of the books?
It's called ThreeBody Problem.
ThreeBody
My
Problem.
husband's in the middle of that.
Yeah.
He's up to the third book.
So that's one thing in there is a dark forest.
But
That's amazing.
there are people.
Three-body problem.
The name of this trilogy from the Chinese author is the ThreeBody Problem. Is the first book,
Yeah.
right? And
But the trilogy is also called the
ThreeBody Problem. Yeah, yeah. And the idea that aliens would destroy each other, or would destroy the next civilization they meet, has its historical roots in our own civilization, which we wiped out the Incas and the Aztecs, to the extent that we lost their entire history. And they had an extensive history, and we don't know it because we burned the books, and then we killed them off. And we did. Do you know? I was reading that. What was it? We visited the first civilization. I think the Incas. The Incas were in Mexico, and the Aztecs were in the Himalaya, in the Andes, or is it the other way around?
The Incas are in Peru.
The Incas were in Peru. Okay, so they met the Aztecs. Okay, they killed off the Aztecs, and then the guy who went to Peru, Pizarro or something like that, he already got he got the lesson from the people who killed off the people of the Aztecs, and he did the same thing to the Incas, having learned how to do it more efficiently. And we were just, and we're idiots. And in fact, we continue to be idiots. You think that slavery is a really bad idea, and why didn't we know it then? Okay? And I agree. I can't imagine people thinking it's okay to enslave other people as a civilization.
They always enslaved their enemy when they won.
They enslaved their enemies when that was a different sort of thing. It was enslave your enemy because we won
That's right.
is a different philosophy than we enslave people because they're inferior and they're not people. Okay, so you imagine all the history that's gone before and what we think about these people, these primitive people who are our ancestors, who did these dastardly things to other. Yes, so the universe, there was no survival of the fittest in the universe. Stars, when they are born or die, don't create a better star depending upon which star survives and which star dies. There is no natural selection. So therefore, so the universe itself is filled with objects that work because they were designed to work. And as soon as you say design, you got God. Okay, so the universe has some very perfect parts that without those perfect parts we wouldn't be here. So if that's why I'm a multiverse guy, because then the next universe over doesn't have so much perfect parts, so that's no good. We happen to live in the one universe which has the perfect parts, and there's an infinite number of other ones that don't work so well, and we're the good one. Then you can preclude the need for God. As soon as you say this is the only universe, then Howard would immediately explain to you carefully why we live in such a perfect universe. And it is. There's nothing, it is beyond belief perfect.
Perhaps there's another God in.
Oh, you want two gods. Right. No,
Troublemaker.
there are conversations in which this universe was a toy, a Erector set version, and the person who made this Erector set did a pretty good job, but there are better universes out there made by more advanced godchildren. Yes.
I think your view is a cop-out. The reason I say your view is a cop-out, in my opinion, is that there are more than 20 constants in our universe.
More than 20, yes.
Yeah, and at the time of the Big Bang, it was all random energy. And for any one of those constants to exist was a 1 in a billion shot. For any one of them.
Right, well, maybe more than a trillion shot, right.
Yeah, more than a trillion shot.
Right.
So these constants, which include the neutron and the proton and gravity and the speed of light and everything else, right?
Right.
I believe in a higher power, not a mythic little old man, but a higher power, a higher super duper intelligence, which made this happen.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I agree with you. If you look at all those constants and you say, well, how did they get here? You want to go with a higher being, and I'm going, well, I don't like higher beings. Personally, I'll do something which is equally conjecture. I'll go with multiverses and accidental. We happen to live in the one universe which has the constants which work.
Well, how do you mathematically create a multiverse? How do you It's such a fantasy.
No, so is God. But the thing, I got something on you that you got to use my thing. I got infinity. Okay, I got infinity on my side. Anytime you argue that these things are improbable, I'm going to wave my infinity flag at you, and I'm going to say, yeah, but there's an infinite amount of chances that you get to do it in, and so I win. You know. Whereas you get one chance. You invent the universe perfectly, and you're done. And so I like, and since I'm not and you know, the more I do infinity as a thing, the more that I think of infinity as being the something that works for me. I like it. It's hard to get your head around infinity. But once you're on the slippery slope to believe in it, or at least buy it, why not? Why not have the universe be infinite, and not only in time but in space? Why not have the universe have always been and always will be? What's wrong with that?
The Big Bang.
Oh well, a Big Bang. See, okay, I give you that the Big Bang would be a problem there, but try to imagine that. I'm not talking about our universe. I'm talking about the universe of universes, in which the Big Bang is one universe, and then there's another one, and they're popping up all the time. So there's universes popping up every other second in the universe because it's infinite. You can't get around as soon as you have infinite, and I don't mean our own universe. I mean infinite of infinites. Then you can do anything. Why not? Why do you need to put out a supposition about a creator when with infinity you can eliminate the creator? So that's where I'm going. Now the question is there any proof? Will there ever be any proof that anything you or I am saying will have any validity? Now the truth in that is that there are some people who have maintained that there is some suggestion that our universe is impinging upon another universe. And they look in the sky and they see the cosmic microwave background, and one part of it seems to be a little too blue, another part of it seems to be a little too red, and they go, well, that might be the indication that we're having a little collision there with the next universe or something like that. It's never going to be resolved, in my opinion. But back to the original insane conversation about what's going to kill us off. What's going to kill us off is, I say, the use of, okay, there's a list. So the aliens killed themselves off in some way or other. That's why they're not here. And the question, and because we know something, they know something, that we're not smart enough not to kill ourselves off. We have a president who thinks that climate change is a hoax, or human-caused climate change is a hoax. And that could very well be the nail in the coffin, because the ability for the human race to affect climate change in the first place has always been an iffy proposition. It gets iffier every year. People say, well, the time that we have 20 years, 50 years, 10 years. Some people say 5 years. Some people say we've passed the point of no return. That's possible too. It's probable in my view. And so climate change. Population is going to change and it's going to level off, I said. There's conversation that supports that point of view. But each of those human beings will continue to use more of the planet's resources than their children did. and as a result, they will burn more fossil fuel, and they will contribute to the global warming. I don't see any way around it. And once you have the global warming, I imagine that there will be problems with water resources and food resources, and so human beings will, in my estimation, resume their warlike ways, because apparently the 20th century, despite World War I and World War II, was nowhere near as deadly as the ongoing previous centuries. We are a much more peaceful species, according to people like Steven Pinker, who say that we are, and other people say that human beings seem to have a decreasing rate of killing each other. World War II, we killed 50 million people, and then thereafter, the Chinese, with the Great Push, Great Society, whatever they did with Mao, he killed another 20 million. But then by the time we got around to Vietnam, or Korea, killed 5 million. Then by the time we get around to Vietnam, I think we killed only 50 million of our own, a few million of the Vietnamese.
50,000.
50,000.
50,000 of our own.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said
50,000 of our own, but millions of the Vietnamese. And then, and what's our latest war? Oh, Afghanistan and Iraq. We're hardly killing anybody comparable.
Highway 50,000.
Yeah, the highways are killing 50,000.
No, 30,000.
And not to mention opioids, which are up to, I think, 90,000 they had last year. Something like
You
that.
raised your bottle. They have them in there.
Right. So you might say we become more peaceful, and you could continue to argue that. And by the way, the book *Sapiens* that I was reading makes that point. And essentially, it says, war-wise, that civilizations used to make war on each other with a moment's provocation, all the time. And now, excluding the United States and Iran and the United States and North Korea, there are practically no, and maybe Israel and Palestine, there are practically no groups, well, and then of course there's Syria, but that's a civil war, it doesn't count. There's practically no one who's willing to make war on another one because it's not economically a good idea. Our civilization is so, I mean, look, we are, the Chinese, we should be at war with the Chinese instead of buying everything they make. So we're unlikely to start having major wars anymore in this world. Except, what happens when climate change induces droughts, major moves of people, major migrations, people at the borders, like at the border of the United States and Mexico, they're moving because basically they can't live where they're living because their civilization is turned to schmutz, and they need to move away from where they were living to come to a place which isn't quite as screwed up as the place they came from. They need to survive with their children. So imagine that 100-fold or 1,000-fold when climate change starts to raise the seas and dry up the rivers and kill off the crops. I mean, we just had a major snowstorm in upstate New York, which I have a place upstate New York. I was told that, and they created a state of emergency. There hasn't been an early snowstorm in upstate New York that has been that severe in a very, very long time. That's the sort of things where storms create havoc will increase as climate change increases. I'm just imagining that you can't imagine how bad it's going to get. And so 8 billion people are going to say, I don't know, I think I want to move. My air conditioning doesn't work anymore. I got to get out of here. let's go live on the tundra and burn the fossil fuels, the peat that's like, let's burn the peat moss. Let's do that. That'll work for us because we don't have any forests left. That'll make the peat moss, the tundra is filled with methane, and will increase climate change 1,000-fold. Ways of killing ourselves are just increasing. I personally think we're at a nadir right now in terms of our world. I think this is a very peaceful, happy place that is unlikely to continue to be so. Now, I have to disclaim that I have been wrong about every prediction I have ever made. So there's a very good probability that I'm talking complete nonsense, right? And I can make you a list of things that I didn't. I'll tell you what I didn't predict. I didn't predict. Not only did I not predict there was an internet. Okay, there was a time. It was 1976. This is years before there was an internet. This internet, if you will, came into my consciousness around 1995. Bill Gates missed it, but I missed it too. First there was Y2K. I was working at a business. I told the people there, mainly my boss, who was a billionaire, still a billionaire. He was running a hedge fund. I said, Y2K. And I told him about it 2 years before it made the news. And then when it made the news, I became his guru. So he trusted me. And I told him how things were really going to go to shit. But I promised him that all the work that I did would be okay. And we at the company would be okay because I was in charge of all the software. So I had designed my software to have 4 digits starting in 1965 because I knew that it was coming, and then by the time it rolled around, I could see it coming, and then nothing happened. And he stormed into my office one day and he said, "You were wrong. I'm never going to trust you again," because he was that kind of guy. And I tried to figure it out, and I did figure it out. The reason I was wrong was everybody on the planet Earth got the memo, and everybody on the planet Earth got together to fix it. So it got fixed. That's my answer. What?
Jamaica said they're going to do it in 2004, and they had no problems.
Say again?
Jamaica said we are going to do Y2K in 2004. It's much easier to do after we already have it. And nothing happened.
And nothing happened?
Neither did in Spain, where they hardly did anything.
You think that it didn't happen in Spain either?
It wasn't really a
Okay, I don't really know the reason. That's my reason. You're saying that it wouldn't have happened anyway? People would have been trapped in elevators. I don't know. But, so that's an example of wrong. And then, so 1976 approximately, I got this book. In this book, this is a time when the small computers are being sold to the public, and they weren't even, it was before the IBM PC. And this book came out and it was talking about all the things you could do in the future with computers. And this guy, his name was Ted Nelson, and he said in his book, one day we will link all of human knowledge together with hyperlinks. And these hyperlinks you'll be able to go from here to there, and be able to find all of human knowledge linked together in some sort of magical way. And I remember thinking to myself, that's impossible. Who is going to do that? Of course, the answer turned out to be the entire human race. I didn't get that, So when I'm telling you, now climate change. Climate change is being worked on by the entire human race. But I have a plastic bottle here that I bought recently at the store, and I've contributed mightily to climate change by using fossil fuel. This is made up of fossil fuel. And the energy to create this. I am using so much energy every day. So even though I'm profoundly aware of climate change and and the extent to which I'm causing it, I still need my perks, and I personally am willing to say, the world be damned. I need to drive my car, get my special food, everything, all my perks. I use so much fossil fuel during a day, and I should be the one to not do that, but I'm not, and neither of any of you. And yet we're all on the same page with climate change, but none of us are doing anything. Something has to be done. It should be the President of the United States who would change the point of view on climate change. It should be every world leader. It should be the entire human race working at breakneck speed to turn off every single appliance and move out into the streets and live in the alleyways and not use any of the fuel that our civilization depends upon. I'm going to take you in the back. No, not you are. Yes. No, Mary.
In fact,
It's anthropogenic climate change that you're talking about. I don't hold with that.
Yeah, but you are the one person in this class who do not.
And
does not.
also, I have done a great deal, and it's a spit in the ocean. You know, I don't use hot water, I ride a bicycle, I recycle everything, I make my own clothes. I do all these things. It doesn't make a difference in the world.
I know.
Because whatever's happening is a natural cycle.
Okay, it's not a natural cycle, and we're not going to argue this because at the same time that I would argue this, you're the only person in the room who is of the other political persuasion.
You've got another
Who
couple
else?
here.
Wait, Howard, are you believing in what?
No. I saw a program on CUNY
Yes.
which showed a number of people were on the verge of perfecting fusion. And
Fusion is still what fusion has always been 20 years away, and it will continue to be 20 years away.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
These people from what the program on CUNY said were on the verge of perfecting a usable technology which will utilize fusion, and if extrapolated, can end our dependence on fossil fuels.
Yes, that would be lovely. I happen not to believe that that's true. I happen not to believe any story that they say about fusion being perfected, because I haven't read it in any kind of journal or any kind of reasonable media. I have heard it hyped on the radio, and I've heard it hyped on TV. I do not believe it. Okay, and it would solve things. If it was there, it would solve everything. I agree. Yes, Mary. Oh no, behind you, Barbara.
I absolutely feel that this whole climate change thing it's becoming irritating. Because
It's
first
becoming
of all,
irritating.
I'm tired of hearing somebody throwing the word Trump as everything. He's there for 4 years, maybe 8. He didn't bring on climate change. Why did we have glaciers in Central Park if there wasn't some sort of a very cold climate? Why did we have tropical plants in Alaska?
The climate of this planet
That's
changes
this-
all the time. This planet has been covered in ice from the North Pole through the equator to the South Pole, and it's done it twice in the history of the human race. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay. Climate change is natural. Climate change is natural. Ice ages are natural. What we have right now isn't. The last time that anything like this happened was hundreds of millions of years ago, and the reason that it happened was because the volcanoes were spewing so much carbon dioxide into the air that it increased the temperature on the Earth enormously. There has never been anything, this is sudden. in terms of geological or astronomical time, this is an eye blink. This is nothing happens this quickly in climate. There are things that happen. There are some things that happen, like floods happening very quickly, but they usually build up for centuries or even millennia before the floods. The Mediterranean. You know where one of the biggest salt mines are? Right under the Mediterranean. You know why there's salt mines under the Mediterranean? Because it's dried up many times. Climate change is normal. What we're experiencing now is induced by human beings, and that is provable, whether or not you believe it or not.
There is.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue
Well,
the point.
I just want to bring another real
Yeah.
fact. In the Middle Ages, the temperature was much higher than it is now, and it lasted for quite a while, and there was no huge industrial
No,
situation.
climate change is normal.
Yes, it's called climate.
It's called climate change. It was also a little ice age around the time. Do you remember Washington crossed the Delaware, and there were ice chunks in the Delaware? In the picture that it shows him crossing the Delaware, there are ice chunks. There was a little ice age. Lasted a few hundred years around that time. Climate change is normal. What's going on now isn't. Because the amount of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere has never been like this in millennia and hundreds of thousands and millions of years. There's more carbon dioxide in the air now than there has been since human beings were on this earth. And we put it there, measurably. Not to discuss it. Point is, because we're not discussing, see, I refuse to be an expert on climate change. Okay? I am not an expert because it upsets me so much, because I don't see what we can do about it as a species. I don't know what we can do. I agree, Howard, if we had fusion power, that would make so much of a difference. If we could convert the sunlight into energy, that would make so much of a difference. Wind power, wave power. If we were able to do those things, it would make an enormous difference. They've even tried to fly electric planes. Electric planes won't fly, but they'll make them fly if there's enough power to power them. Better batteries to put the electricity that we make from other sources into a storage bin where we can use it when we need it, like at nighttime. If we were able to do some of these things, we would be able to perhaps forestall climate change. But you know, the thing is, climate is all about feedback. If you melt the polar ice caps, then the Earth gets warmer, and the feedback of the Earth getting warmer melts the polar ice caps. You don't need to do anything. You could take us all away, remove the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, make it all perfect, use only nuclear fuel, only fusion fuel, and we may have reached a point where it's too late already. The ice caps melting raises the temperature of the Earth. The temperature of the Earth melts the ice caps. It can all happen without our help anymore. We may have passed the point of no return. I believe we have. Yes.
I've been to both the poles. I've been to North Pole and South Pole, Arctic, not Arctic. And there is tremendous evidence that the ice is thickening again.
Okay.
It's thickening again.
Okay.
So we are judging on data which is semi-finished.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're getting your data from places that I do not respect.
You mean being actually there?
No, I'm getting your data from places.
There's
The data that you are espousing is simply wrong. I can't say it any more clearly. The ice sheets are not getting thicker. The ice is melting. That's what's happening. The ice is melting in Antarctica, in Greenland. The Arctic Ocean is now being able to be traversed by boats. What you're saying is simply not right. You get your information from a different source than I do. And that's part of the problem with our civilization, that we now have a way. The internet was, in the past, capable of giving us the truth. That's what we were hoping for. It no longer gives us the truth. It gives us our truth. Whatever you happen to believe in will appear on your screen and verify your point of view. Try it out. If I went to your computer and I typed climate change, I would get a different set of answers from Google than the answers that Google would give me on climate change. And you will read those articles and believe what they say because you have a given point of view, and I will read my articles. The difference between the articles that I read and the articles that you read is I will go to the scientific sources. I will go deeper into the people who created the studies in the first place. So I believe them to be more true. Yes?
Did you happen to see the feature about Australia? And because it has gotten so incredibly hot on the surface of the land, they have dug burrows or apartments actually with stoves and couches and beds and everything, and they're now living under the surface.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Living that, and I've read, as I said, I'm not an expert on climate change. I choose not to be an expert on climate change. I just know some things by accident, because every time I read stuff about climate change, it makes me upset, and so I only read the good news articles. I mean, if there's a good news article about climate change, I'm reading it, but the bad news articles, because I really do believe that we have passed the tipping point as a civilization, and so I'm concerned about what what we're going to do to each other in the next century, and bringing it back to how we're going to kill ourselves. If the climate change, because this was the topic of this conversation, I was having this conversation rather than having the conversation about our prior class because there wasn't enough of a quorum. Anyway, so how are we going to kill ourselves? So the climate change causes famines, causes changes in our ability to raise our crops. Oh, let me, the attendance sheet. And the very fact that the people who have been forced to leave Syria are being treated as poorly as they have, that's just 2 million people. 2 million people can be easily discounted and forgotten in a 3-week news cycle. But World War II was not a 2-week news cycle. If you've ever seen the newspaper from the World War II, and none of us were really living in it during it. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of us were living during that time. I mean, not just living, but reading the newspapers during that time. So that we were aware of what was going on, and our parents weren't concealing it from us at all costs. That was millions and millions of people at war with millions and millions of people. When water is no longer a resource because it's dried up in some way, or when people are forced to essentially protect their own, which could result in climate change, that's when I believe that things will get worse. And I think that the pollution, that we're polluting the oceans, that's all true. But I don't think that will hit us as anywhere near as fast as will the movement of people trying to keep their own kind alive. And the fact that I don't stop drinking water from plastic bottles, I mean, it's wrong. And the fact that I don't stop eating meat, because meat requires 100 times the amount of energy and calories that plants, that if I just became a vegetarian. So we're not doing any of those things. We have to change who we are as a civilization. And it's not impossible, but people like me are not going to help any. So it has to be people who are literally in charge. Yes.
I would like your opinion of this statement here. I showed you the magazine, Population Connection.
Yes,
Now, they have a statement here that population growth is a key driver of climate change,
yes,
number one. Number two, higher and more effective use of contraception reduces unplanned pregnancy.
yes.
And hence population growth. Do you think it's that significant, use of contraception?
Yes, the population growth, the study that I've read and the studies that I've read show that there is a leveling off that will occur over time for population. And that leveling, there are a number of things that are going on. Right now, it's not leveling off as fast as you might expect because you're living longer. You need to stop consuming stuff. You're living much longer than the previous generation did years ago, and that's contributing to population growth. The number of people who are reproducing at the bottom end of the spectrum is actually constant. It has not increased. Those people are not making exponentially more of themselves at that age group. The age group that is growing the population is remaining constant, so that over time, that will produce a constant. So that's how they're determining that. They can see these people they're economically better off, and they're using contraception, and they're not having as many children in order to protect themselves in old age. And that's what Bill Gates was doing when he and Melinda Gates were giving money to people to prevent and cure malaria. Why cure malaria? There'd only be more of them. But in fact, there'd be less of them. That's the way the studies go. It seems odd. If you make people more viable, they won't have as many children. Right. Yes.
In support of what you're saying, surprise, when women in primitive cultures are educated to a third grade level, they stop having more than 3 kids.
Right.
They
Education.
say, we want a better life, and the only
Education. Education more than anything.
Right. So
Education
fewer
is-
children will be a better life.
Contraception simply gives them the capability of using it. If they don't choose to, they can have as many children as they want. Education, higher income level, better living conditions, they will have less children. Yes.
And kids are used as social security in those countries.
Yeah, kids are used
So
as
you
social
have to have
security.
kids or you have no support. when you-
Right, but now you don't need as many kids to be able to ensure the idea that you will be protected in your later years. So climate,
But we should have less children too, and we could absorb some immigration. That would actually help.
you think we could absorb some of those people?
Yeah.
Aren't they inferior?
I mean, if we would have less kids, we would have no climate change.
Right, a lot of people who can't, I know a lot of people who
It's probably easy then to wait for.
I have at least 3 friends who can't have children anymore or at all, and are going through the concept of shall I adopt? But they can't get children from overseas as easily. Anyway, so the story here that I've been telling is not about climate change so much. It's really about the end of civilization as we know it. And I've been basically making a point that maybe we're not going to last so long, and basically these are all the bad things that we can do, and I don't have a lot of hope. But remember, I was just vamping on the subject in order to not discuss what it was that I was supposed to discuss, because there wasn't enough people here. Barbara, if you had come earlier, I know. I know. But if there were more people here who had been here there were only 3 people in this room at the beginning of this class who had been here for the last class. So I decided to change the topic.
I was just going to ask you as the last question, what was the topic?
Well, I didn't discuss.
Beginning of the lecture.
Oh,
I assumed you went sideways.
Oh, I did go sideways, but the end of last lecture, which you were here for, I said, the conversation is all about the cosmic distance ladder. So I posted on the web a lecture that began, its title says, Fun Not Discussing the Cosmic Distance Ladder. And I essentially didn't discuss it, and I promised that I would discuss it at the next class, but that didn't happen because there wasn't enough people. So I felt, so if you, listen, if you are the only people who come next time, okay, I promise you, I will give you a prepared lecture rather than some rambling bullshit, and try to, find, because the topic, look, it's on the screen. It's on the screen, for God's sakes. It's always on the screen. Cosmic distance ladder. Here to here to here. Okay? There's lots of stuff to discuss here and here and here. It's really an interesting story, but I didn't want to waste it on a class that didn't have a quorum, so I decided to whatever.
You just told us we're not worthwhile.
No, you need to be a quorum. The quorum of people who were here last time. I don't even care if there's 6 of you who came last time and 6 of you who came this time. Then I'd say that's a quorum because we can continue the conversation. But it's getting harder to be able to continue a line of a train of thought. What I'm going to do, I think, in the future is I'm going to make lectures that are completely self-contained about some random topic that doesn't depend whatsoever on what was previous year. There was a guy here last time. He conflated the age of man with the age of the Earth, with the age of the sun, with the age of the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe. Basically made no distinction between those ages. Because basically he had never really thought, he was brought here by a friend, I don't think he had ever really thought about the ages of any of these things. And they are, thousands of times each of them greater than the previous one I mentioned. And he just brought them all together and didn't know the distinction between millions and billions of years. Didn't make a difference to him. There's a difference. So I needed to spend a little time with that conversation, and I couldn't go on to the conversation about what I came to talk about, which is how do you know about these things? He didn't believe, or somebody else didn't believe. How do you know any of this stuff? Well, that's a great question. How do I explain that? The way I explain that, I always say, millions of dollars was spent to figure out these things. And that's my stock explanation for everything. Instead of it being some guy's wet dream, all right, it's really a lot of money has been spent. Experts, entire lives have been spent studying this thing, and you wonder, how do they know this? It's not a question, it's actually a statement.
Yeah.
I don't think they know this stuff. They're just making it up. And I need to say, well, no, they're not making it up. It's really true. But how do I explain everything about astronomy in one sentence? So I say millions of dollars have been spent answering that question. Believe it. Just like I said to you, that it's simply not true about what you said. In other words, I'm not giving you the data. I'm just saying there's data to disprove what you
You
said.
assume, of course, I don't read data.
No, I assume you read the wrong data. That's what I assume. That if you want, we'll just sit down and do some data together. We'll sit at my computer. We'll sit at my computer. We'll sit at my computer, and we will Google the things we disagree on. Okay, and we'll see what my Google comes up with. Because I'm sure, as I said, your Google will come up with a different set of answers. Right? It's really annoying. They really know they know your past Googling history. They know your political point of view, and they give it back to you. I almost never get stuff that is crazy people saying crazy things, but every now and then I press the button where the crazy person is saying crazy things. You know, flat Earth. Flat Earth is a good one. And so I spent a week looking down the hole where the flat Earth people live, and guess what? For weeks after that, whenever I Googled anything, something about flat Earth kept showing up on my screen. You know, so I could, if I wanted to, I could continue to learn. And this wasn't just the idiots. These were the people, and this wasn't the people who were disproving it. These are the crazy people, because the people who disprove it are on one side, and if you keep just clicking on the people who believe in it, that's all you get, is the people who believe in a flat Earth. And it's interesting, though, their arguments are quite interesting. They're not, I mean, they're off the wall, but there are people who say, I used to be a normal person, and then I got hold of this information about flat Earth, and I realized we've been lied to all these years. And now, you know, and I've researched it. That's your point. I've researched it, and now I'm very clear that the Earth is flat, and I don't know why everybody doesn't believe it. And here's my proof. And he proceeds to explain it. And he explains it. And then other people explain it. They have extremely good arguments that are completely fallacious. Yes.
That shows the edge of the black
I forgot what they argued, but it's really, I mean, you really should Google it, because it's so monumentally stupid that you think that at least evidence by itself, there's enough evidence to show that's wrong. The curvature of the Earth, clearly, as you go, I mean, anything that you want to propose would explain that. Why are there stars up there?
Traveling for 2 days.
Yeah, you get exactly right.
Do you remember in the 70s when the merry pranksters went around and said, why haven't we been shown a picture of the whole Earth yet? And they were all over. They were in parks, they had a van, they had a display, and they said, why haven't we seen a picture of the whole Earth? And people went, but we have. And they went, no, we haven't. And they convinced people, and it was a joke. It was a joke, but they had a big following of people that said there's a conspiracy going on, that we have not seen a picture of the whole Earth. And people saying, but they took pictures of the whole Earth. The astronauts took pictures of the whole Earth. There were pictures of the whole Earth. They went, no, there aren't.
Yes, right.
And they convinced people.
Right.
And there are still people who think we never went to the moon.
Yes, right.
And that's why they haven't shown a picture of the whole Earth.
Right. Yes.
We have data to prove that the Earth is flat. Look at an old atlas book, and they've stretched it out.
No. Barbara, in those days, they knew the Earth was round. There was almost, just because the maps were flat didn't mean that people didn't know the Earth was round. Everybody knew the Earth was round at all times. There was just a couple of kooks who did that, and they put monsters at the edge of it. Yes. Anytime we should get together, and we should explore. We should Google together.
I use DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo. It's not
Then
that.
you will get the same thing when you start that.
It's a little scary that we're getting different opinions.
Yeah, I know, it's really scary. And if you want to blame the demise of civilization as we know it, I think Google is a good place to start. Amazon is also good, but Google is good. Yes.
This is my birthday week, and I want to go to, I'm told there are lectures at Columbia that I can go to this weekend.
Possible, I don't know.
Oh, you don't know about, on astronomy, that's what I want.
Yeah.
But
But
it's called the outreach program. I think it's on Friday. I went a long time ago.
That's 20 minutes.
Every Friday. If you do astronomy outreach at Columbia,
He knows.
And
Okay.
may I tell?
yeah. Yes, and
Okay, may I tell a joke?
sure.
Okay, so there's this scrawny guy who comes in for a job to a recruiter, and the recruiter says, well, what is it that you'd like to do? And he says, well, I'm a lumberjack, I cut down trees. So she says, well, you're kind of not built up, and this is a very arduous, terribly hard task. She said, can you give me some references of something that you've done before, something that you've done? He says, well, there was the Sahara forest and the Gobi forest. She goes, no, those are deserts. He says, now!
Okay, that's good. If I